What's up, guys? I'm gonna be dissecting Job 40 in this video. And to fit the theme, I'm playing Ark Survival in the background. I know. Ark Ascended is out, but my computer is too weak to run it, so we're sticking to the original. But anyways, time to read the part I want to highlight verbatim. Verses Job 40, 15 through 24. This is in the NIV. Look at Behemoth, which I made along with you, and feeds on grass like an ox. What strength it has in its loins, what power in the muscles of its belly. Its tail sways like a cedar, the sinews of its thighs are close-knit. Its bones are tubes of bronze, its limbs are like rods of iron. It ranks first among the works of God, yet its maker can approach it with his sword. The hills bring it their produce, and all the wild animals play nearby. Under the lotus plants it lies, hidden among the reeds in the marsh. The lotuses conceal it in their shadow. The poplars by the stream surround it. A raging river does not alarm it. It is secure, though the Jordan should surge against its mouth. Can anyone capture it by the eyes, or trap it and pierce its nose? So, what is the Bible talking about here? To give context, Job has been continuously asked if he can face multiple challenges. I have not read the whole Bible yet, and so far I have read from Matthew, and I'm getting on Romans as of right now. Yet, I occasionally stumble upon thought pieces like this. If I miss and find any vital information regarding more to this video, I will upload a corrected version when I see it. So with all that said, let's start by writing down the characteristics of this. We have the name itself, which it doesn't say look at the behemoth, it says look at Behemoth, which kind of threw me off at first, but it conveys just giganticism. Like, that's not even a word. But when I call something a behemoth, like, it's more than just giant. Like, this thing is the biggest. Like, proportions, this may very well be the largest terrestrial animal of all time, and it would make sense because God said it ranks first. So, in that same verse, we learn it's a herbivore that eats grass. The stomach of this presents very strong protection and muscles in its stomach body area. The tail is described as a cedar, a type of tree, and it has thick legs, and its bones are ginormous with tough limbs. It is one of the first creations, and it may have been killed with God's sword. We will discuss a possible interpretation of this later, and the hills provide its food next to where other animals live. However, I like to add, the English Standard Version calls them wild beast. I don't know what it is about it. I just really like that. The next two verses say it lies under lotus plants in the marsh reeds, which may be like a wrong translation, but we'll get into all this. I'm just laying out the groundwork right now. It's surrounded by poplars, which means it swims in... Notice the poplar line. Look, poplars are tall, thin trees that don't look like they would belong anywhere near a swamp. And what also may be important is that they were popular around gathering areas in Roman times. However, it may not be this tree due to other translation discrepancies that we'll get into later, so I don't know. We'll figure it out. Better explained in the King James Version, its mouth is so big it can swallow the entire Jordan River. Like, King James says this thing's mouth is so gigantic. I don't know. Again, translation discrepancies. We're getting into all this. And the last line is what mainly threw me off at first. So I'll get into my hypothesis too. But can anyone reach its eye and or cut its nose? So we have accumulated all this, and it is now time to deduct from human understanding what we know of that closely relates to this. I want to allow all doors to start open, kind of like Guess Who, because hey, that's what science should always be about. But before I get into my personal theories, I'd like to go over the translation discrepancies so we can follow into proper lifestyle to stamp on this magnificent creation. So, excuse me. I've gone through each and every translation listed on Bible Gateway and have compiled a list of translations in 3 regarding the plant life proportions and tree types. There's a list of 3. We got, first up, lotus plants, and then lotus bushes or small trees, and then just straight up lotus trees. So 30 say lotus plants, 5 say lotus bushes or small trees, and then 19 say lotus trees. The majority, I'm just, when it comes to translations, I'm gonna just go with the majority. The majority say lotus plants, which are small, like lilies, like lily pads. I don't understand that, but, interpretations coming soon. As for the tree types for verse 22, here are the tallies for 13 say poplar trees, and then get this, 40 say willows of the brook, and willows of the brook are swamp trees, basically. When you think of a swamp, these are the trees you think of. And 2 say something else, like in the CEV, they don't describe that anything. It just says they're hidden in shadows. And then in the GNV, it's not declaring where they hide, but actually asking if it can hide in the trees. Yeah, but that's just one translation. I want to take its word for it. So with all those out of the way, time to draw what this could be with the information handed. The head has a big mouth, and assuming it's not amphibious, its nose would be resting on a higher elevation so it can breathe while submerged in water. So with all that said, it must either be amphibious or have gills if the nose is not on top, and I will have a reason why this can't be. Next is the body and legs for the neck. The neck may not be known, but the body has to be massive in accordance to the mouth. All animals with big mouths have bodies larger than their mouth. Like, this is just common sense. I don't see any other animals with big mouths and smaller bodies. Of course, there's stuff that can expand, but they, for the enclosed version that isn't like going all chipmunk on you, those like have a ratio with the body that is smaller. And as for the legs, honestly, I don't know if these could be either like bronto legs, like tree stumps, or if they can have feet, but ideas for that later. It does have a tail, so that means it's most likely quadrupedal and is described as a cedar tree, which is a humongous tree. Like, look, from now on, I'm not even going to say synonyms for anything for the word big. It should just be assumed anything about this animal is just the largest. Like, otherwise, why would the Bible boast about such a specimen if it's not the best? Especially right before an equally, if not more fascinating description. Regardless, so with this physical description, I would like to add something that I've not before fleshed out. I want to stay on the dinosaur theme, so I'm gonna only go over known dinosaurs, but none of them really exemplify these characteristics by their two-life interpretations. But if we judge based off of fossils alone, paleontologists have paired up with each other, there may be some leeway for an answer that's been hiding in plain sight. So to start, we know we should only be looking at megafauna. This being said, anything under 20 feet is immediately disqualified. Sorry, Beezle Bufo. Another note to add is that it slept underwater, or by it, because there may have been lotuses on land. Like, this is sort of a long time ago. I mean, maybe it like just picked it up with its mouth and put it on top of itself. And someone has already drawn up a depiction of this behemoth, but I disagree with it. My biggest problem, besides its massive ear and tusks, which are not described, is how it would eat grass. Because let's use our brains here. Let's go back to physics class. This grass can be absolutely as massive as it wants. No problems there. When I reach out to press on grass, it does not bend. And if it's big, it would bend, but only like less than favorable portions of it would fall over. But if this thing looks like that, like a hippo with no neck and tusks, and tried to eat grass, the lip would be too big for any size. Like, okay, it bends down, the tusks are gonna get in the way, whatever you want to say. It could go at an angle and it would feed on hills, so there's room for interpretation. Now, if this thing not only ate grass but the actual hill with it, then surely the Bible would say it eats terrain, straight up, but it only says grass, so that's why I disagree with it. But still on the table if wherever it lived grass was that tall. So I'm in need to eliminate all carnivores, with only known contenders right now being the sauropods. The reason I'm eliminating the carnivores is because they're not herbivores, straight up. Their teeth just don't pick up the grass, you know what I'm saying? So all we have right now are sauropods. What's interesting about sauropods are their long necks, because long-necked dinosaurs would be expected to eat off of trees like giraffes do. But in this case, we would assume they wouldn't, and I guess it would make sense for them to eat grass on hills, because at this point, just talking about its size again, the trees would be too small. Like, my neck would hurt bending down all day. If I looked down all day, my neck would hurt, and I would probably feel the same if I was one of these sauropods. And keep in mind, when I first blew off that it could be a sauropod, I interpreted the Jordan line as its mouth being so big it devours the river. It still can, but that was in the King James Version. Realistically, something with that mouth would need a body to go with it that can sufficiently breathe. What y'all may not understand is that when you get that size, oxygen seems a lot more scarce because you'll need way more of it. But after reading all these versions, I can believe with most certainty that it is actually more of a testimony to how much water it drinks and how strong its infrastructure is. To go into a rapid river and hold your mouth open, swallowing the water, which is something only a few can pull off, it would need a neck strong enough to make the job get done for sure. But what really blows my brains out, the line that takes the oil out of my gears, is the line that God can strike it at any time with his sword, which I interpret as, extinction. The book of Job was probably written around 7th and 4th BCE, according to Wikipedia, about 2,723 years ago. Now, unless the CIA is really good at covering this stuff up, there have been no extremely close sauropod bones that have left out on the surface we have discovered. Actually, matter of fact, there is one. That's right, the Titanosaur. The absolute best contenders for this behemoth are between that and the Dreadnoughtus, along with a few more lesser likely ones I will post in the source section of the description. With the biblical belief that all life was created in the span of 1,000 years, our diversity is decreasing over time. All the fossils discovered are old, but for example, the saber-tooths would have been here since the beginning and went extinct around the Ice Age. Any fossils of the saber-tooth may be buried underground and not in canyons or water deposits, or maybe they are, but only the future can hold that information. These geological changes definitely affected which species dominated when and where, but what they fail to show is that these species didn't just come out on the scene from nothing. They've all been here. So to give context to the fossil finds of the Titanosaur, it would be assumed that if it lived so long ago, finding a giant vertebrae on the surface would be impossible and logically incorrect. Actually, history proves its first discovery was on a farm in Argentina, and the man who found it thought it was petrified wood. We don't have all the neck fossils, so the estimates would definitely vary, and the adult skulls are missing along with, obviously their tissue. So these may have very well been super soakers in the South American swamps. Not to mention those lands have plenty of hills and home to other of the largest megafauna we know of too. I like to point out how ugly it would look for a Titanosaur to have really big cheeks, but God's creation is perfect. We'll never meet his creativity, so our version of how that would look may be very different from how it actually looks. But I'm getting off topic here. In conclusion, our best contenders are these ginormous sauropods, which are stated as the largest land animals ever recorded. And it may have very well not have been the Titanosaur, but with modern information, this is the closest of the others. Also, for those opposing my pronunciation of Job, I do not know how else to pronounce it, and my pastures only stay on the basic, easy-to-digest stuff. And to all you prudes out there, an elephant is small and does not live in the swamp. These things also don't go underwater ever. Hippos do, but they definitely aren't something to boast about when it comes to their size. They are magnificent as all creatures, but when the creator is calling something a behemoth, you gotta think, even for a moment, must be pretty ginormous. Anyways, thank you for watching. I need to get this off my chest. Bless y'all. Bye.